Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Rakak, Kwadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, especially the 144,000, who consist of the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in the land of the Americas, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. So I'm just looking at this Arc de Trump. You've probably heard about it. I wanted to get into this a few days back, but I've just been like really unwell for about 2, 3 weeks, and just then I ended up with a continuous cough. It took me about a week to get over my issue, but then the cough just continued. So it's been quite difficult to sit down and make a video without coughing every 2 seconds. But so it's a little bit late on this one, but you've probably heard. It says here what we know about White House plans for an Arc de Trump. 16th of October, US President Donald Trump wants to build a triumphal arch across from the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., the latest in his efforts to make over the capital city in his style. And I'm not going to read it all into it, but you can pretty much see like a model of it there. Like I say, you've probably heard about it, but just in case you haven't. And just going back into it, there was another one here. You know, he made the announcement at a. That's not that one. He made an announcement at. Yeah, this one. He made an announcement during a speech where he was talking about building a ballroom here. In addition to a new ballroom, flagpoles gliding the Oval Office and paving over Rose Garden, the US President proposes an arch. So he made this announcement while he's also talking about this ballroom. I know others have gone into it, and this ballroom is costing so much money. I think like 250 million pound dollars. Sorry. It says that Wednesday's dinner was designed to thank billionaires and top companies for donating to another of his pet projects, a new $250 million ballroom at the White House. So you probably heard about that. But what I wanted to bring out here is it says here the guests who donated reportedly included representatives from tech firms. So it's all his little friends. You know, then people, you know, you say things to people, and then they'll say conspiracy theory, or they'll say, you know, you're talking conspiracy theories, or you know, people think that the world is an open, free, democratic place. You know, you make your vote, and you know, whoever counts the many votes, that's what the people ask for. That you know, things don't work like that. You know, there's people behind the scenes, and this. I mean, when you've got, you know, Nero, Trump, Nero, aka Nero, he's here. He's implementing. He's got all these technocrats around him, and he's going to use them. Obviously, this is all part of the plan of the elites. As I keep saying, obviously the election is actually really a selection. So they've decided to put this man in power and with a certain group of people to make this changeover from the current world that we live in into the new world that they're expecting to establish based around the MOTB, Revelation 13. But the guests reportedly included representatives from tech firms such as Amazon, Apple, Meta, Google, Microsoft, and Palantir. And the defense, and the defense giant Lockheed Martin, as well as twins Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, the founders of crypto platform Gemini. So Trump told the gathering, so many of you have been really, really generous. It says, I mean, a couple of you I have sitting here are saying, sir, would 25 million be appropriate? I said, I'll take it. So you get an idea. People try and say, "Oh, conspiracy." Well, I mean, look what happens this is the real world. You've got the so-called president, most powerful man in the world, apparently elected into this role, and then you have a whole bunch of people sitting there with him with a whole bunch of money, 25 mil, throwing it at him for his new project. And then you think, he's not going to like do things in their favor. Obviously, they work together. But yeah, the arch, they call it the Arc. It's like a French way of saying it. You've got the Arc de Triomphe. It's probably one that's quite famous, well known. You can see it there. It's the Arc de Triomphe in France. It's quite big. Um, that one's 50 meters high. You've got the Arc of Titus. See, this is a pretty much a Roman thing. The Arc of Titus showing the spoils of Jerusalem. And you can even pull up a list. I'm not going to go into the details. I know, like for example, Apostle Tahar went into it. There's like a list. You can get a list of arcs, arches or arcs. They're called arcs. So in France, Arc de Triomphe du Carrousel, Grand Arch, Triumphal Arch of Orange, and it goes on. Italy, North America, Asia, United Kingdom, and it's pretty much a Roman thing. And so this brings me really to the point of the video, what I wanted to say. So you got, why do people use arches to signify triumph? And people use arches to signify triumph because of the form, because the form originates with the Roman Empire. So this is what we keep telling you, according to the scriptures. You go to the book of Daniel, you read of the statue, and the fourth part represents Rome. It comes, there's two legs, so you have two parts. You go to Revelation 13, it talks about the beast with the deadly wound that was healed. So the revival of the Roman Empire. So obviously, things we see in this kingdom, as we've been, telling you for a long time, you'll see things, going back to Rome as well as other places in ancient Egypt, ancient Mizraim, and all different, different kingdoms and empires from in between that. Greek, for example, they'll borrow philosophies and customs, and they've brought it into this new system. And this new system is pretty much evolves around America, Babylon the Great, according to the scriptures, which is the golden cup that the Most High has used to make the earth drunk. We live in this confusing, corrupt society, which doesn't do anybody any good, and that's all part of prophecy. It says, yeah, people use arches to signify triumph because the form originates with the Roman Empire, which used monumental triumphal arches to commemorate military victories. It says, beyond their historical association, arches symbolize strength, stability, it says, and the transition form from one phase to another. And that's where we're at. I keep saying Donald Trump, you've got that administration, the Make America Great Again. That is obviously what Apostle Paul spoke of, peace and safety. When they say peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction as travail upon a woman in birth. So we've got these events that are coming up, and obviously from when this particular president's come in the beginning, we've been saying that this is the last president. Now he could die, he could pass away, you could end up with J.D. Vance taking over, but this administration that has been put into place with its, because it's not just about Nero sitting in the middle. He's like the puppet in the middle that all the cameras are on, but you have many people around him, and they're all bringing this new system. All these technocrats. I'm not going to start rolling off the names. You should really know who they are. So you got all these different technocrats, so on and so forth. These people that turn up to these dinners and donate $25 million each so he can build his super ballroom. So the movement is bigger than one person. It's a whole system, and the elites controlling it from the top. And so now we're at this point where they're going to transition from this world that we live in at the minute into this new world, which is this MOTB. And that's a transition from one phase to another. This is the historical precedent set by ancient Rome. It says the tradition of triumphal arches began in ancient Rome, a civilization renowned for its engineering of arches and vaults in aqueducts and other structures. So celebrating victory, the Roman Senate originally commissioned arches known as fornaces to celebrate the general's military triumph and victory parades. This is elevating the victor. I'm not going to go read it all, it kind of explains itself. Displaying propaganda. The arches were decorated with inscriptions and sculpted reliefs illustrating the victor's achievements and the stories of the war campaign. They served as a constant visual reminder of the victory and the victor's power. This is enduring influence. So these are kind of like the reasons, the four main reasons why that we use create these arches, these triumphal arches. It's all about triumph. And you think, for example, like you've got the Georgia Guidestones. They were put up by somebody, and a message was put on there, and it was up there for some particular reason. That these people, that whoever put it up there, why they put it up there, and then at some point we've seen it taken down, and we've said like, so obviously whatever was on there, they're about to move into a new phase. And so the people moving you into the new phase of these people in this particular administration, make America great again, peace and safety. And so there's a certain victory in what Babylon the Great America is supposed to do. It's that golden cup. So the way the world is today, it's a confused place. There's many different false idols and gods and types of worship, lifestyles. There's all types of wars going on. There's corruption going on. There's inflation. And people are suppressed in all four corners of the globe. And that was the job of America. And so it's done its job, and that's to triumph. And so obviously that's why at the same time I keep saying to you, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai is giving you Donald Trump, the last president of America. Because obviously now the Most High is at a point where Babylon's done its job. And so now I'm going to give you the last president of America, and this guy's going to usher in all the judgment, all the trouble, because judgment begins at the house of Israel. So we're seeing that now. And so you go from one transition to another, from a transition from one world to another into this MOTB world, which these elites are orchestrating. But at the same time, then you have the Most High then transitions that world into the kingdom of heaven by the introduction of Yahushai, the angels, and the nuclear ICBMs. So we're about to hit a double transition, and this is kind of like another symbol. It says here displaying propaganda. So if you understand what you see, we see them putting up an arch, and this is obviously represents triumph. We know Babylon, whatever it came to do, it's achieved it, and that's why they're bringing it to its knees. They're bringing it down. They're bringing it to destruction. They're creating the civil war. They're creating the inflation. They're allowing, they allowed the borders to drop or whatever they did. So all the problems you've got there today, they put it into place to destroy it. And we keep telling you very soon, you're going to have certain events that are going to take place, and digital IDs is going to turn into digital currencies, and eventually the MOTB. So what need is there for America after that? Because you now don't need the American dream or the whole system, because you're imploding it to introduce your new one, which is that new world, the new world order, based around the MOTB. So and then it goes on here, the symbolic power, the symbolic. So this is what we're looking at really, because obviously this is like a historical precedent set by Rome. So that's what we're seeing. The Rome's just doing what they're doing again. But then you've got the symbolic power, which is, kind of like, if you like, spiritual. This is what we do. We see spiritual signs. These things are symbolic to us. You see you see a solar eclipse at a certain point, at a certain place. That's a symbolic power, because the Most High is giving you a message, and when that, for example, when that solar eclipse came in America a few years back, and a year ago or whatever it was, and we said, okay, this is a sign the Most High is about to do stuff. It says the enduring use of the arch form is also linked to its inherent symbolic qualities. It says strength and stability. It says from an architectural perspective, the arch is a strong and stable structure that can bear immense weight. As Leonardo da Vinci observed, two curved segments that are individually weak combine to form one strength. This makes it a powerful metaphor for resilience and endurance. Passage and transition, and that's the bit that kind of caught my eye, passage and transition. Obviously, they're having the arch, the Arch of Trump, or Trump arch or arc, whatever you want to call it, of Trump. They're having that built, I believe it's by a bridge. So that's like a physical entrance, but then you obviously have these things also have spiritual messages. It says the arch gateway represents a transitional space, crossing from one place or state into another. This can be interpreted literally as a grand entrance into a city, or metaphorically as a passage into a new era. That's where we're going. It's following a great achievement, and that great achievement is what I'm saying. Babylon the Great, the Golden Cup. It was designed to, set up, created and designed and made in that way to make the whole world drunk. That's what the scriptures tell you. The Most High did it, and he put the elites in control of that. And so these elites now think, yeah, we've done with that. It's done what we wanted it to do. We can now bring down the system and all the confusion. You see, if there wasn't confusion around the world and you had all these problems going on with what these elites were doing, then the people would realize what they're doing and they'd stop it, the people power. But because the world is kind of so broken up into so many different problems that people are dealing with, you've got people over there that are starving, people over there dealing with war, you've got people over in the Western world dealing with their issues, you've got this left-right issue, you've got people arguing over the Middle East, the thing that's been going on for the last 2 years. So the world's divided, and so meanwhile these elites, keep turning the screw, bring the system down. Babylon the Great has done its job, so they can use that to hide while they implement their new system, bring about these false flags. They put these things up in the news, they get the people to follow them. The people believe, these dummies, these zombies in normal society, they believe the propaganda that's told to them. They go along with it. Like when the MOTB gets made mandatory, a lot of people will go running. They will say, well, I need it because I need money, I need to eat, and they're just going to go with it. So Babylon the Great is that's the great achievement. It's done its job, and they're going to transition you, Donald Trump, peace and safety, make America great again. They've come in to take you to a new world, the MOTB. Monumental entrance, even modern arches like the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, or the Washington Square Arch in New York City, which may commemorate historical events rather than military triumphs, still function as monumental entrances that signify a city's importance and grandeur. So, I don't know exactly how big this particular arch is going to be, but when you look at things, you kind of look at it from a spiritual eye. You say, well, is there some sort of spiritual message in there? That's kind of what you're supposed to really be doing. You're working off the Holy Spirit. So you have the scriptures. They give you a good understanding once you get the right teacher. And then when you look out into the world, you should be able to see signs and symbols, symbolic messages, certain things, to warn you stay away from this, or these certain things will work for you. And we have signs in the stars and the heavens to tell us what the Most High is doing. And that's what a lot of the prophets would use. They would use different types of signs, symbols to warn what the Most High is about to do. Um, this is Malachi 1 and 4. It says, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. And this is obviously going into the time of Renaissance. Roughly 400-500 years ago, you had the rebirth of the nation of Edom after the 1,000 years in darkness spoken of in the book of Revelation. They pretty much emerged to go on to create the revised Roman Empire that we're living in today, through Christopher Columbus and so on and so forth. It says, the British Empire, going on to the American Empire that we have today, that pretty much controls, using NATO, EU, which is the beast, 7 heads and 10 horns in Revelation 13. It says, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we shall return and build the desolate places. It says, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build and I will throw down. It says, and they shall call them the border of wickedness. And it says, and the people against whom Yahweh have indignation forever. It says they shall build, but I will throw down. And you've got to think, everything that these Edomites have ever built, it's all going to come down. All these structures, various things, especially with these arches, they're all, come the day of the Lord, when the nuclear ICBMs hit America and the land of Israel, you'll have the earth shaking, rocking to and fro. You'll have a worldwide earthquake. The lands will move. You'll have a new map. After that destruction, there'll actually be a new world map, because land will have moved into different places. And so with it, the infrastructure, the buildings, statues, all of it, it's all going to come down. It's all going to crumble. It's all going to be shifted out of place. It's all going to break, snap, and move. It says, and they shall call them, it says, the border of wickedness. And you go back to that word, the border, it goes back to the word extremity. And that's what these Edomites are, the extremity of wickedness. You go into wickedness, and you look into the world of wickedness, and you look to do wicked things, and wherever you go, you'll find Edomites within that, within those extremities. You things like, look at the world today, like PDF files, people messing with children, whatever. You've got corruption, that's another form of wickedness. They use usury, interest, against people, forcing people to be in debt. There's all types of wickedness. They pollute, even just polluting the earth and the food that we live in. It all goes back to wickedness. And these Edomites, they got their hands in all of it. It says, and the people against whom Yahweh have indignation forever. This is 1 Corinthians 15:52. It says, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, it says, at the last trump, it says, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. So you've got Donald Trump, the last Trump, and you've got his last triumph. That's like the last, because the ark represents triumph. Sorry. So you've got the Arc de Triomphe, and even when you go into why do people put arcs, it's obviously to represent and to signify triumph, and that's obviously what Babylon the Great has triumphed in its job, and to confuse the world and put it into a dark, wicked place. And here comes that transition into that new world order. This is Yahushua himself. This is Matthew 11:17. It says, and saying, we have piped unto you, and ye have not danced. It says, we have mourned unto you, and ye have not lamented. It says, for John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he hath a devil. It says, the Son of Man cometh eating and drinking, and they say, behold, a man gluttonous. It says, and a winebibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. It says, but wisdom is justified of her children. So, this word has gone out. And that generation, that was, if you jump, so I should have really started at verse 16. It says, but whereunto shall I liken this generation? It is like unto children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows. And so this word's gone out, in that time of Yahushua it went out. And that same generation that was around then is the same generation that's here today. If you don't know, reincarnation is a biblical concept. And so we all come back in the third or fourth generation through our father's bloodline. So you've got the same generation that's out here today, and that message has gone out. And I'm not saying that obviously the doors of repentance are closed, because somebody could wake up today and say, oh, I'm a Hebrew Israelite, and spirit could hit them and it could all be good. But the Most High is about to you're seeing it. The Most High is pretty much bringing this destruction. Judgment starts with the house of Israel, and you're seeing the northern, southern kingdom. The pressure's starting to come. There's problems creating. I mean, this is just the beginning. As bad as it seems, you see these little videos, and you hear the stories of what they're doing. But it's going to get a lot worse. And then obviously, this is the children of Israel, the 2/3, especially in America, that have not taken upon this warning. This is 1 Corinthians 14 and 7. It says, and even things without life giving sound. This is Apostle Paul. It says, whether pipe or harp. It says, except they give a distinction in the sounds, how shall it be known what is piped or harped? So you've got these instruments that have no life, but then they give particular sounds. But then you have to make a distinction. Certain people can play these sounds, certain people can't. And then obviously listener, you'll be able to. It says, except they give a distinction in the sounds. It says, how shall it be known what is piped or harped? And so we've let it be known. We've told you, we've broke it down. We've told you, look, this is the last. This MAGA, Make America Great Again. This is pretty much the last administration. The Most High could have had Biden stay back in for another 4 years, and he could have delayed this part until 2028 or 29 or whatever it is, and then had MAGA 2.0, because you had it obviously from 2016 to 2020. They didn't quite get the job done. Nero came in a particular manner, but this time round, he's come in the spirit of Nero. When he came last time, he came in the spirit of Trump. This time, he's coming in the spirit of Nero, and he's doing that persecution, hunting down Israelites, but he's doing it in he's working it through the system, rather than just sending out a band of men on a bunch of horses with guns to go and shoot people down. He's actually doing it through a technical legal process, even though he's not really doing it legally. Along the way they'll break laws. So this time round he's come in that spirit, and we've told you this is what it is. So this time round now, the persecution starts, and over the course of the last year, you've seen it, the last 10 months, and it's only going to get worse. And you're seeing this transition from this Babylon the Great, this world that. You see, for example, these Israelites, especially these women, they're moaning about their EBT. I mean, this is all part of prophecy. The warnings have gone out. We've been saying it for a long time. So anyone getting caught up in it now, that's it. The Most High's clearly not dealing with you, and He's just holding you up for judgment. So for you that are just hearing this word recently, and if it sounds alarming to you, you should really, that's really how you want it to be. You should really be paying attention and getting to understand this really quickly, because things are about to change. Babylon the Great has done its job. That's why they don't need all that credit system. Shut down the government. I know it's a temporary thing, but they don't really need it all. They want it to implode, and they're going to give you something new, and that is based around the MOTB. So I'm going to leave it right there. I hope that was edifying. Until next time, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Rakak, Quadash. Until next time, Shalom.